Elsa announced that she wanted Blair to be her guardian knight. This surprised the knight and teacher Kazan a little, for they knew what the little girl was talking about. A guardian knight is not the same as an ordinary knight. Every member of the imperial family has the right to choose a guardian knight from the Association of Mages or the Association of Knights. Guardian knights are responsible for the safety of the royal family and at the same time have a special status. Kazan was chosen as the guardian knight of the first concubine. He was fidgeting around her like a little dog. He was so tired. It is only because of this title that Kazan is so firmly planted in the Archmage's position. Even though Blair has a talent for magic, he has the lowest rank in the Mage Association, so Kazan can bully him in every possible way. If he becomes this maiden's guardian knight, it's like flying up a few levels. If that happens, won't it be harder for him to bully him? Kazan went to Her Majesty and explained that choosing a guardian knight is an important matter. Blair is only a mage's apprentice. He's afraid it's too much responsibility for him. The wizard suggested that he hand the matter over first. But he didn't manage to finish his sentence as the little girl grabbed Blair's hand and replied that she wants Brother Blair to be her guardian knight. Even if he is not strong enough yet, doesn't he have an amazing teacher like him? She believes that Kazan can teach him useful things. Now Kazan won't be able to expel Blair from the Mage Association. Kazan once again asked about what she said about beautiful things. The great wizard asked how it could be difficult for him since he was just teaching Blair magic. Just 1 or 2 compliments and he melted. He believes the words of a 5-year-old girl. He really is that simple-minded. The wizard replied that he won't mention the guardian knight position again, but he can't let that monster be left behind. They don't know what it's capable of. Maybe that monster is still dangerous. Elsa informed that she has already decided that this beast will be her pet. She will take responsibility for it. She added, and if he dares to challenge her decision, she will ask Daddy to spank him. The great wizard, as soon as he heard this, replied that since Her Highness wanted it so much, he would so-and-so turn a blind eye and let her keep that demon. He has things to do, so he will go. He feels like this girl is playing with him. The knight turned to Teacher Kazan. He asked if he would really let Blair be the princess's guardian knight. Kazan knows that Blair is an outcast among the mages. He has tried so many times to kick him out of the Mages Association. It's the princess's decision. What can he do about it? But Blair will become the guardian knight of the cursed girl, so let him do what he wants. Finally finished. Blair turned to Her Majesty and thanked her for helping him, but asked her to take back what she said about her wanting to make him her guardian knight. He asked her not to waste that role on helping him. He was only a magician's apprentice. He was too weak to protect her. Elsa asked, didn't he just protect her? Just now, if he hadn't saved her from that brute, she wouldn't just be standing there. Blair is being too modest. It was an accident. He was just scared and almost hurt her. Her Majesty asked if he would agree to be her guardian knight, to which he agreed. The pet said that he was there too, and she should not forget about him. She took him in her arms and informed him that from this day forward, he was her pet, and she would take care of him. Blair wondered if she really understood him. Elsa replied that she was cursed to some degree and was not like a normal person. It's kind of a special skill. She definitely can't say that she was a cultivator from another world in her past life. The princess reported that this kid was a bit scared, so she suggested that they return to the palace for starters. But the little girl became careless with her foot and twisted it. She started to fall, but Blair caught her and asked what had happened. The princess replied that she thought she had twisted her ankle when she had fallen earlier. But the pain was just coming back. Luckily, the palace was close by, and she could walk. Blair lifted her up, to which Elsa asked what he was doing. The guy explained how she could walk backwards with her injured ankle. He put her on the swing and examined her ankle. He reported that it was swollen and it was bad. Blair apologized to the princess that he didn't know much about healing magic, so she should be patient for a while. Elsa reported that it seemed amazing. She doesn't know why, but as soon as she saw that boy, it felt like they had known each other for a long time or she was just making it up. Blair said that he had heard rumors about her a long time ago. They said that the palace had a princess born with ruby eyes. So as soon as he saw her, he recognized her immediately. But because of those eyes, she was called cursed, He thought she was being treated too harshly at such an early age. When he met her, he realized she was a kind and smart kid. Blair couldn't hope to get enough of her caring. Elsa replied that she wasn't really paying attention to being called cursed. If it weren't for her high position, she would have been killed a long time ago. He doesn't seem to know about the bond between her and Arthur, so she decided that she won't tell him for now. Either way, as the guardian knight of the cursed girl, he's going to have a tough time of it. Blair replied that he didn't care, since he had been born into a poor family. To be Her Highness's knight guardian was a great honor. Elsa explained that she had heard that the Association of Magicians could include people born in the Marquise's family. The boy explained that his family was once akin to the Marquis family. Even more so, it was a noble family of mages, thriving for many generations. But when he was very young, his parents went on an expedition with the emperor and died. His father was the head of the family. After his death, members of the sidelines took over the family. They took away even the compensation provided by the emperor. Because of this, he was thrown out of the family. Fortunately, His Majesty found out and accepted him into the Mage Association as an apprentice mage. It turns out his father helped him. Surprisingly, he is constantly busy with the affairs of the empire, but even so, he found time to care for the child of his dead subordinates. Turns out his family is a family of hereditary magicians. No wonder even Kazan recognized his talent for magic. Blair explained that he was only really good at soul magic, which had been passed down from generation to generation, and that he wasn't very good at other kinds of magic. Soul magic is associated with death, so most mages find it unacceptable. All of his colleagues and teacher are against him using it. Elsa thought it was unfair. She was more than sure that they were just afraid of his talent. Blair informed her that becoming a guardian knight was the greatest honor, and if need be, he was willing to sacrifice himself for her. The princess asked him not to be so serious, for now there was a slightly different matter where his help was needed. He asked her to give her orders. Elsa asked if he could teach her magic. This really surprised the guy. He replied that he could do anything but that. His Majesty had earlier issued an order that forbids her and Prince Arthur to learn any magic. Elsa didn't understand what he was talking about. It appeared that not only Arthur was forbidden to learn magic, but she was forbidden to learn magic as well. She didn't understand if her plan to become stronger had gone down the drain. The little girl is determined that she must survive, so by all means, she must learn magic. Suddenly Levi came running to them, saying why she was there. He grabbed the princess and asked her to come with him quickly, for she must leave the palace. Elsa asked why they were leaving the palace so suddenly, to which Levi replied that a deadly epidemic had broken out in the capital. Many people had already died. The royal physician said that His Majesty got infected when he went out for a checkup a few days ago. His Majesty was afraid that the epidemic could affect all members of the royal family, so it was ordered to be temporarily evacuated. This really surprised the princess and Blair. In the past, she had never experienced her father's love. In her past life, the little girl was thrown away like a thing. She was picked up by a sect that raised her without knowing who the parents were. She had always wanted a father like the other children. It was something she dared not dream of until she was reborn as his daughter. Levi explained that this epidemic is different from the others. At first there is the usual fever, but then it gets worse. Everyone who gets sick starts coughing up blood and eventually dies. In the capital and outside the capital, many people have fallen ill from this disease. Besides His Majesty, many servants have also been infected. His Majesty has given orders to evacuate all the healthy people from the palace, while he himself will stay with the infected. Most of the people have already left the imperial palace, but the prince refuses to leave. His Majesty hoped then she would convince him to leave together. Their priority is to survive. Elsa must convince His Highness the Prince to leave the palace immediately. Escaping has been her goal since her rebirth, but she didn't understand why she was procrastinating. Of course, even though he is a cold-blooded man who could kill her at any moment, she can see his attitude towards her changing a little bit at a time. Maybe that's what fatherly love is all about. Deep in her heart, she knows the answer no matter what. He cared and protected her, albeit in his own way. She didn't understand why then she had to run away when he needed her. The princess asked Levi to take her to her father. Levi replied that the epidemic was too dangerous and she should not stay there. He wished she would heed his words. Elsa explained that Papa had ordered the evacuation of everyone from the imperial palace to avoid new infections. He would be worried if Artut stayed with him. He must have his own reasons for asking the little girl to do so. It would be dangerous for Arthur to stay there. She, as his older sister, must see to his safety. She was asking him to go. Even if she had to sacrifice herself to Arthur in the future, it wasn't his fault. She could think later about how to avoid that fate for now. She couldn't leave him alone. Blair turned to Levi and asked him to let Her Highness go, for with his magic the princess would not be in danger of infection. He will protect her. Levi asked who they were. Elsa stepped to their defense and replied that he was her guardian knight and that creature was her new pet. Levi couldn't believe what he heard and asked her to explain why she was so careless about such important things. He thought that in the future, he should work on her re-education. Elsa said that she would tell him later because it was an emergency. Levi reported that it was okay. She had always been diligent when she was younger. Now Elsa is grown up and has her own opinions and judgment. She is too hard on herself. He trusts that Her Majesty will not overreact, so he offered to take the prince and leave the palace. They arrived at the emperor's house. The little girl turned to Papa. Levi informed them that they should not interfere. Baby girl moved closer to her father and asked how he was feeling. But suddenly Arthur's voice was heard calling for his sister. She reported that he was really there. The brother turned to his sister and explained that he had heard that his father was ill and his mother wanted to send him away from the imperial palace. But he could not leave his father, and so he came to him in secret from her. The emperor heard the children's voice and got up from the bed. He asked Elsa to take Arthur and leave the palace. He would not budge, and it was her duty as his elder sister to persuade him. Elsa replied that she would follow his will and take Arthur away, and then the little girl asked how he was feeling, for she was very much worried about him. Her brother also added that he was worried about his father. The emperor said that of his 11 children, they stand out the most. One of them is always plotting something without realizing the consequences, while the other is smart beyond her years. He will never understand what she is up to in her little head. This epidemic is serious, and everyone immediately leaves the palace with their tails between their legs, and the two of them are the only ones who care about him. They both must leave the palace and not disobey his orders. Arthur couldn't stand it and shouted that he wanted to stay with his father. Elsa informs him that they can't do that, as Papa doesn't want them to get sick. He is worried about them. If Arthur stays, he will worry even more, and if that happens, how will Daddy be able to rest in peace? The emperor said that he knows his daughter is a smart child, and asked him to take care of his brother when Owen leave the imperial palace and should not return until the epidemic is over. They are both the future of the empire and nothing should happen to them. Elsa replied that she would take care of it. However, she asked her daddy to promise her that he would recover. The little girl touched the glass that separated her and her father. The emperor did the same. The emperor replied that he would promise her. Elsa took her brother's hand and turned to Levi, saying that they didn't have much time. Just like that, they left. His Highness coughed sharply. He looked at his hand and saw a trace of blood there. They walked without stopping. There was a station set up outside the palace gates, where everyone had to be examined. Anyone found to have symptoms of the disease would be quarantined in the palace. According to the guards, the imperial concubine had asked to deliver this for Arthur when she heard that he was missing, after which she left to a temporary palace. After the guards found out that Arthur was with them, then they said to take him to the imperial concubine's palace. They were preparing to leave the palace after the inspection. Before leaving, they are also inspected. Looks like they're forcibly locking up people with symptoms. Dad wants to keep the disease at bay as long as possible. If that's the case, the palace is the most dangerous place. The mage who tested the little girl reported that although she was in close contact with His Majesty, she is healthy and can leave the palace. This test was very accurate, so she need not worry. Elsa thanked. But suddenly she heard outrage. How dare they, and who gave them the right to stop her? It was the second Princess Michelle. She was saying why she had to die in the palace with those infected. The magician answered her that she was showing symptoms of the disease. By order of His Majesty, she is to remain in the palace under quarantine, to which Michelle replied that it was bullshit and she wasn't sick. Caprice is not a good thing. Not cooperating will only hurt her and everyone around her. Michelle informed that if they wanted to stop someone, they should stop the damn girl, and pointed her finger at the little girl. The princess ordered the guards to bring her to her. Levi, protecting the children, asked what they were going to do. Michelle asked how she could have gotten infected if she hadn't seen her father in over 17 days, and this girl had been hanging around him constantly the last few days. The second princess couldn't believe that she was infected. She thought that Elsa was the one who was infected. Michelle could not calm down and kept asking what if it was this girl who brought misfortune to their empire. They could not let her go. She asked how about the mages taking her and using her to improve the medicine. Blair replied that according to the check, Her Highness is healthy. Levi asked the second princess to call off her guards or she would be sorry. Michelle asked how he's slave. This girl dares to touch her since she is a princess. She will make him die a horrible death. Michelle is definitely not staying there and grabbed the little girl's hands. Arthur appeared and ordered her to let her sister go. Michelle was very surprised. The prince asked how dare she touch her. He ordered the other princess to let her go. Elsa was also surprised at this turn of events. Michelle asked that didn't he go with the first concubine who had recently left there. Arthur confidently walked over to her and picked up the little girl. He asked what she hadn't heard, that he had ordered her to let Elsa go or what. He ordered her to kneel down in front of her. He was very angry and furious. Michelle trembled with fear. She fell on her knees in front of the first prince. This surprised everyone present very much. They didn't understand how the second princess, who was still older than him, but so simply bowed before him. Of course, after all, His Majesty is the sole heir of the empire. Besides, he has the highest status. His kingdom was so angry, no one dared to contradict his words. Elsa never thought that Arthur would stand up for her. But his facial expression, quite similar to his father, they really are father and son. Michelle didn't understand if Arthur, that little rascal, he actually brought her to her knees in front of everyone because of that damned girl. She, the dignified second princess, then why should she be so dishonored? The second princess turned to Arthur and explained that she didn't mean to hurt Elsa. She was going to leave, but her father would be lonely if he was alone. She supposedly asked Elsa about it. The first prince replied that if Elsa stayed, he would accompany her. Levi asked to be allowed to inform his mother that the prince had accepted the second princess's request to voluntarily stay quarantined in the palace, even though the Mogi had already confirmed that neither His Highness nor Her Highness Elsa were infected. Michelle immediately replied that no, and the palace was currently infected with the virus. If the first concubine found out that she had asked him to stay in the palace, she would not forgive the second princess. The other one coughed. The maids started to say that it looks like the second princess is infected. The second one asked to hurry up and get away from her, for she too could be infected. Arthur covered his sister with words about staying away. Levi suppressed that it was true, and the second princess and she should stay for isolation and observation. Elsa informed that in addition, if Michelle even leaves the palace right that minute, she won't be able to cure her illness. Not only would she not harm others, but also herself. The second princess asked why she has to stay alone. She can't stay there and wait quietly for her death. Michelle turned to Arthur and explained that even if this girl is his twin sister, she is still just a victim who will give her life for him sooner or later. Furthermore, she added that this cursed girl would bring trouble to the empire. She didn't understand why he was protecting her. Isn't she the second princess? Michelle didn't know why, even so, he was protecting the cursed girl. Elsa thought her words were all true. In her brother's eyes, she is really just a victim. Arthur replied that he was not protecting her. Elsa is his twin sister, only he is allowed to bully her. He added that he was annoyed when he saw her bullying her. Elsa was a bit confused because she couldn't understand how it's only he is allowed to bully her. It sounds weird, but still sees her as his sister. Although Arthur is usually a bit unreasonable, what matters is when he stands up for her. Her heart is so warm. Arthur grabbed Elsa's hand and addressed her, saying that they should stop talking to her. He doesn't want to pick up the crown from her. Michelle turned to the first prince and asked him to listen to her, his sister, because she is not sick in her opinion and wants to go with him. The guards grabbed the second princess and informed her again that she was already infected and must stay for quarantine. She must be assured that the mages would soon find a cure for the disease. Michelle kept yelling that she didn't want to stay there. After getting rid of the second princess, they left the imperial palace and headed to the temporary palace where the rest of the royal family who were not infected went to avoid the epidemic. This was Elsa's first time leaving this place since her rebirth in this world. But she never thought she would see such a tragic situation. The epidemic has strongly already spread through the imperial city. They saw infected people everywhere they went. Some people were just falling down from the disease. People's eyes were filled with helplessness and fear, seeing how their father tried so hard to avoid spreading the infection, these horrible living conditions of people. If Elsa still had the ability to improve, she would definitely be able to help them, but now, other than her sympathy for them, she was completely useless. Blair turned to Her Highness and informed her that he didn't think he could go to the palace with her, so he would leave her for the time being. Elsa asked why, and where he was going, to which he replied that as a mage, he can't shrink in the face of this disease, with the National Magical Library nearby. If he did some research, Blair could find a cure. Although he is not strong in healing magic, he still can't try it. If Blair finds a cure for this disease, he can help everyone. Levi reported, even though he has magical protection put on, it's still dangerous to walk outside. Besides, it's not much use. Elsa informed that she would then go and help as well. She added, all they were doing was watching people suffer from this disease all along the way. Elsa can no longer just stand by and watch it unfold. She wants to help too. Even if she can't do anything to help, there is still hope. Also, if she can find a cure, she can save her father too. Arthur has also indicated that he will help. Levi reported that they can't let them leave. Even so, no one could go against the decision the prince had already made. Blair suggested that they go. He hoped they could find a cure quickly. Just as the doors of the magic library opened, they saw so many people being cared for. It looked like the place was being used as a temporary medical area. The mage said that he thought that using a magical shield would prevent the virus from spreading, but that doesn't seem to be the case. More and more mages are getting sick by the minute. He didn't know what they should do now. Blair never thought that the pandemic was this serious. If this continued, the epidemic would spread quickly, so they should hurry up and find a cure. Levi informed that there are so many sick people around, it is dangerous for the prince and princess to be there. Elsa explained so many mages are already sick to save the infected people. This is no time for them to be idle. They must act quickly. She noticed the wizard Kazan, who didn't understand why so many patients. He asked the guys to go first. After all, he needs to sterilize himself outside this infected place. The prince and princess were surprised by the appearance of the great wizard. The one was giving orders for them to go quickly and change the infected mages and continue to study the virus. He seems to be there to coordinate the mages in this situation. If he finds that she and Arthur have traveled there, he will probably quarantine the palace. Elsa asked her brother what they should do now, since they won't be able to find the information. They can't let them catch the children. The library is very big. She wondered if they would be able to hide there. Elsa watched the servants taking care of the children and realized. The little girl reported that she had a good idea. Levi and Blair had a bad feeling about it. Cauldron gave orders for them to carry more, since they were short on medicine. But suddenly, all the nurses noticed the cutie. Cauldron didn't realize what was wrong with them. Everyone was paying attention to a very cute nurse. It was Levi who had reincarnated with the help of magic. Even the man who was sick asked his neighbor to help him sit up, since he couldn't see anything because of him. Elsa thought that was just fine. for they wouldn't be able to detect them as long as they were disguised. Cauldron ordered them to stand still. The princess already thought they had been recognized. The wizard explained that they looked very familiar. He snapped his fingers, and a beautiful rose appeared in his hands. He explained that perhaps they had met in a dream. He introduced himself as the great magician Kazan. The prince and princess thought they thought too highly of him, to which the nurse replied that this rose was so beautiful, but she was sorry they were busy. So she suggested we talk next time and called Kazan handsome. Levi, she'd rather die than wear something like that. Kazan at this time thought what a coincidence if it was love at first sight. The great wizard asked them to get back to their work, and then asked if she thought they could have dinner later. The nurse replied that he needn't worry, for she would take him out for green tea as soon as it was over. It would be tea with marinated bacon, of course. Cauldron kept thinking that this nurse must be the new girl, for her voice was so irresistible. He thought she would soon be his. It was a risky decision, but they managed to sneak into the library. But for now, it wasn't the best time to look for information. They decided to wait for the night when everyone was asleep to secretly search for information. But since they didn't want to waste time, they decided to observe the patient's condition. They used magic to lower the body temperature, but for some reason the man was still hot. The man was coughing up blood, and there were red marks all over his body. As soon as night fell, the mages went to rest. This gave them a chance to search for information. They met many guards but avoided them safely as well, and afterward, they reached the healing magic department. This area is constantly watched by the guards. They would need to be careful. Blair reported that he had found some suitable books for Elsa. The little girl thanked him for that. These books were very simple. Few words and lots of pictures. She realized why Blair had said that these books were suitable for her. He was afraid that she wouldn't be able to read since she was still small. He noticed some of the books and asked Her Majesty if she could understand them. He didn't think that Her Highness had already read such difficult magic books. Besides, there were several of them. Elsa replied that she did, because although she didn't know magic, she could still find information about the epidemic. Of course, Levi had taught her how to read and write. Naturally, she had no problem reading books. Blair didn't understand if Mr. Levi was so harsh. Her Highness is already reading so well at the age of 5. He explained that he was very concerned, so he would start reading immediately. Elsa agreed, but after a couple seconds she noticed Blair reading with magic. Her Majesty is so amazing, so he should work harder. Elsa was just in awe of Blair's magic. It was marvelous. He had read so many books. The guy asked the little girl what was wrong. Maybe she couldn't understand something. The princess replied that she thought that the more books they read, the faster they could find a cure, so she wanted to do that too. He reached out to her and offered to join her to read together. She accepted his offer, and Blair's magic swirled around them both. It was very magical. After a while, Blair asked where all the books from the shelf had disappeared to. Hadn't they already read them all? There were stacks of books on the floor. Strangely, the books were moving on their own. Elsa noticed it too, and wondered if there was a ghost in the library, but suddenly Arthur appeared and exhaled with the words, "That at last." The princess asked him what he was doing. His brother explained that he wanted to help, but he didn't try very hard in his studies, so he didn't understand difficult books, and he didn't know how to use magic. That's when Elsa assumed that he'd decided to help with the books. Blair reported that the prince was great because he was able to sort the books into categories. It would save them a lot of time. Babe thanked her brother. He's marvelous. It's amazing that Arthur has such a side to him. At these words, the prince was embarrassed and replied that it was nothing like that. He is a carbon copy of his father. But he was very pleased, after a while. They read it all, but there was nothing useful. But suddenly Elsa noticed another book on top. Arthur also confirmed, there is another book there, but he is small, and so he couldn't get it. Even the ladder didn't help him, so he didn't touch it. Blair used magic to get that book. It is said that a great magician wrote that book, but unfortunately, no one in the Empire can understand that text. Elsa noticed that this language was from the cultivator world. It seems that this great magician, people have been reborn there before her. The little girl inquired if she could look at the book. Blair answered positively. But he wondered if Her Highness Elsa could understand the text. The princess leafed through the book and noticed there were exercises, alchemy, even a way to convert magical power into spiritual power. Someone in the past left this book. She said that in this book there is information about medicines that allow you to fight the epidemic. They have been there for a long time. Any hiccup could cost them dearly, so they must find the information they need faster. She is sure that this book contains what they need. Levi, in the meantime, brewed some invigorating red tea. After a night, they were able to find something. It looked like their efforts had not been in vain. But suddenly, he noticed people walking towards them. The knights did not understand who was there. But suddenly a great magician opened the door and answered that it was him. The knight asked why he was there at such a time. Kazan replied that it was none of their business, and they should continue patrolling and not relax while doing their duty. The knight replied that he understood and would not bother him. Kazan thought that maybe he had misunderstood something. Mr. Kazan must have an appointment with that hot nurse. That's why he came to the library at night. He can't interfere with his affair. The knight informed them that they should go patrol further. The appearance of the great magician was replaced by Levi. He was just using magic. That knight was so easy to fool. It seems Kazan is rather indiscreet. He knows it's dangerous for the princess to investigate the epidemic, but she's risking her life for a good cause. The only thing he can do is help her. It was a very close call, but luckily they weren't interrupted. Elsa reported what she found. This book has a bit of information about the epidemic. Levi, as soon as he walked in, asked her if she was sure. The patients get a fever when they first get infected. They begin to cough, and even cough up blood if their condition worsens. During the critical stage, bloody patches begin to appear on the skin. The symptoms of those infected with the virus are exactly the same as in the book. The disease is called cataleptic asphyxia. It shocked the guys. This disease has been appearing in the cultivator world as well. According to the records, a terrible epidemic once appeared in the cultivator world. At first, those infected had a fever and cough, but then it became hard for them to breathe. They couldn't move and died of suffocation. The people in the cultivator world called this disease cataleptic asphyxia. No one knew where it came from. But fortunately, a few great cultivators found priceless resources in that world and began to work together to make a miracle cure that would wipe out the epidemic. But here, those resources can't be found in that world. Luckily, the author of this book found alternative ingredients. Elsa said that they will be able to make a cure for cataleptic asphyxiation once they find the ingredients listed in this book. Red grass, a shard of magical crystal, coal ash from a magical furnace, the fruit of a dragon tree, and a flower with magical crystals. Blair asked, "Then what are they waiting for? They should go gather the ingredients right that minute." Elsa then suggested that they split up and search for them, and then try to make a cure based on that formula. They agreed to do that. They had found a solution. She wondered how her dad was feeling at this time. The Emperor sat behind the robot and coughed. His aide reported that they were ready to distribute supplies to build isolation wards, as he had ordered. With his condition, he shouldn't be doing government business. He should rest for a while. The Emperor reported that he was fine, and as king, he was in charge of the empire. He let his aide go. The one had already started to object, but just one look from the Emperor was enough, and the doors had already slammed shut. He wouldn't be able to hold out much longer, but how could he break his promise to his daughter? His Majesty decided he had to go through with it, no matter how difficult it would be. After a day of hard work, they finally found all the ingredients by sundown. Blair reported that they had a red herb, a shard of magic crystal, the fruit of a dragon tree, and the flower of a magic flower. Elsa asked what they should do now, since they still needed coal ash from the magical furnace. Levi happened to have some. He handed them a pouch. Arthur was just delighted with Levi. The little girl thanked him and wondered where he got it from, to which Levi replied that it just happened. But he himself had burns on his hands. Elsa poured all the ingredients into the cauldron. Blair wondered what to do next, since they had all the ingredients. Then the princess explained that it was Fluffy's turn. She grabbed Blair's hand and asked for his help. She asked if he could transfer his magic to Fluffy. Blair asked what it was, and that was it, to which Her Highness responded positively, because that's what the book says. She understands the language of Fluffy and the language the book is written in. It's unbelievable. You'd think she'd have a couple amazing secrets. Blair decided it wasn't time to think about that just yet. So he did, handed the Fluffy one his magic. It's beautiful. It's chi. According to the book, Liani Lynx had a hidden ability that absorbed the magic of this world and converted it into chi. The little girl was using magic too. This really surprised Levi since he had never taught her magic. How she was able to do it. Blair noted that her magic seemed very powerful. He had never seen anything like it. Arthur asked if his little sister was finished and if they were about to do it, to which Elsa replied that the magic was not enough. She needed a little more. The prince tried to cheer Blair up, to which the boy apologized because he was trying his best. But Levi came to the rescue, asking if Blair had forgotten about him. That helped a lot, and the power of the magic was enough. After a while, the princess alerted that they had finally made them. They were the pillory. But suddenly, everything started to double in her eyes and she fell down. Levi picked the little girl up just in time. Blair used soul magic. He reported that the princess had contracted cataleptic asphyxia. He didn't understand when she'd had time to become infected. Levi asked her not to worry, as he would take her to the mages. To that, the little girl asked Levi not to do that, because she got sick in time. She wants to see if the cure works. So she did. Arthur asked his sister to spit it out. He didn't understand how she could be so careless to check the pill. Levi informed him that it was too late. She had already swallowed it. Blair remarked that it looked like she was in pain. Still, he asked her to take it to the magicians. Levi told him to wait because the pill was working, as soon as the baby opened her eyes. Blair decided to check on her. Great, all the symptoms were gone and she was cured. Elsa reported that their hard work had been worth it. The pills were really working. She got sick at the right time. Arthur was happy. His sister is amazing. But suddenly Levi informed him that he didn't think she was serious enough about her health. He decided that he would make her a pot of bitter gourd and celery juice every day to boost her immune system. That way she wouldn't get sick, and she wouldn't have to take pills at random. Elsa was trembling with fear. She knows he was worried about her, but this was too much. She got up and stood across from Levi. The princess took Levi's hands in hers and told him that because he said that, she could conclude that he wasn't taking his health seriously enough either. Babe asked why he had burns on his arm. Wasn't it a coincidence that he had coal ash from the magical furnace? He had burned himself while mining it. She was right. He was in a lot of pain. Levi replied that it was nothing to him. The coal ash from the magic furnace has magic resistance, so he had to mine it with his bare hands. That's what ended up getting him burned. Elsa informed him that he's always like this. She took out a handkerchief and started to swab his hand. He always does something for her without saying a word about it. Levi never tells her that he is hurt because he doesn't want her to worry. The princess asked him to not only think about taking care of her, he should also take good care of himself. Levi agreed. She asked him to remember to change his bandage every day. Elsa would remind him to do so. After they confirmed the benefits of the pills, then they decided to tell her father about it. That way, they could use all the national power to make even more pills. After all, there were so many sick people who needed the medicine to save their lives. But before they could leave, the scandalized Kazan got in their way again. He asked if they could see that he was sick. He kept saying he was losing his vitality and asking for help. It didn't look like he was losing them. Arthur came over and just popped a pill into his mouth. He explained that it was a special medicine his sister had made that could cure him. Cauldron was shocked at where His Highness had come from. But after a couple of seconds, realization came, and he asked how the prince let him eat the unknown pill. Children's toy pills don't work. He thought for sure he was going to die. But suddenly he noticed that the red spots were gone. Cauldron couldn't believe he was cured and the pill worked. He asked for the formula and for help making more pills. Kazan decided that he would be the one to stop this epidemic. It was forgotten. Elsa decided that she wouldn't pay attention to it because they had more important things to do. Blair thought that he was his teacher after all. He just wants praise. Levi decided that he would invite him to tea when it was over, and the prince would make Kazan his slave when this was all over. They all knew that Kazan wanted more pills, but decided to stay there and help them because they didn't have time to save people. Elsa asked the mages to lend her their magic. Thanks to Kazan, they soon made the first batch of pills and saved the patients in the library. Most of the patients were cured and went home, and there weren't many pills left. There were still plenty of sick people in the Empire who needed a cure. IM needed to find a way to make more pills. The patients in the library had recovered, but there were plenty of infected outside. Elsa had to stay and get busy making pills. These pills she has to take to her daddy. So everyone started gathering as many ingredients as they could. Cauldron asked them to be more lively. So many should be enough. The ingredients stood in several layers in the boxes. When they were ready to start making the second batch, the people began to gather outside the library. They found out that the medicine was there and decided to take it. There were even more people. They demanded that the medicine be given to them.